Shalom, this is Yara Batya here with another Torah portion, and we are in the book of Genesis, and today I'm going to focus on chapter 11, and the title of this lesson is What Are You Building? So I'm going to start off reading chapter 11. I'm going to start off reading verses 1 through 4. It says, "And all the earth had one language and one speech. And it came to be, as they set out from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said to each other, Come, let us make bricks, and bake them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and they had asphalt for mortar. And they said, Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower, whose top or whose head is in the heavens, and make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered over all the face of the earth." So I want to go back a little bit just to get some context on who are the people that we're talking about right here. Who are the people that said to each other, "Come, let us make bricks"? Who is it that is talking right here and carrying this out in this verse? So I want to go back real quick, one chapter, back to chapter 10, just to get the context. So chapter 10, verse 6 through 12, I'm going to read quickly. It said, "And the sons of Ham," so this is after the flood, of course. If you've been following through the Torah portion, we've gone through Noah, we've gone through the flood, and Noah and his three sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, are supposed to be repopulating the earth. So this is giving a breakdown. It says, "And the sons of Ham, Cush and Mitzrayim, and Put and Canaan, and the sons of Cush, Seba, Hawilah, and Sabta, and Rama, and Sabteka, and the sons of Rama, Sheba, and Dedan. And Cush brought forth Nimrod." So you got the three sons. We're dealing with Ham right now, and Cush is one of Ham's sons. So Cush brought forth Nimrod. So Nimrod's the son of Cush. It says that he began to be a mighty one on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before Yah. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before Yah. And the beginning of his reign was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh, in the land of Shinar. From that land he went to Asher, and built Nineveh, and Rehoboth, and Calah, and Rezin between Nineveh and Calah, the great city." Okay? So this gives us some context on who we're dealing with when we get to Genesis chapter 11. So in Genesis chapter 11, 1 through 4 that I just read, it said that they came, so they're dealing with the land of Shinar. They found a plain there, and now they're saying to each other that they're going to take some bricks and make bricks, and they're going to build with these bricks that they're creating and making, and they're going to build a city and a tower whose head is in the heavens, and they're going to make a name for themselves because they don't want to be scattered over the face of the earth. So the first problem, I'm going to go back to Genesis chapter 9, another chapter where we're dealing with Noah, and it says, "Elohim blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, Be fruitful and increase and fill the earth." So after the flood, the Most High gave the instructions for them to be fruitful, increase, and fill the earth, and he blessed them. So the first problem we see here is that they've decided that they don't want to be scattered over the earth. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but there's some interesting details that are added to this when you read the works of Josephus in the Antiquities of the Jews in book number 1 and in chapter 4. If you get an opportunity, it's not very long, but just go check that out and see what that has to say. But part of what it lays out there, it talks about Nimrod, and it talks about how he basically was vengeful towards the Most High, and that he kind of led the people against the Most High. He had a and the people had a anger in one sense towards the Most High for destroying the earth via the flood, and then they also had a fear of it happening again. So part of the motivation behind them wanting to create a high tower was to avoid being washed away in another flood in the event that the Most High, went back on His word and decided to destroy the earth via flood again. So that was one of the things, and then also, is to still make a name for themselves, and really for Nimrod. So that's kind of some of the motivations and the other, and more of the thoughts that were also behind this act that they were doing. So when we look at, what their motivations were, the work behind the work that they were doing, this building that they were doing, it was motivated by fear. Their fear of, based on the book of Josephus, fear of the flood coming and taking them and washing them away again. And based on what we read in Genesis chapter 11, fear of being scattered over the face of the earth. Also, they're motivated by pride. Nimrod is kind of raising himself up to the heavens and putting himself almost as a god. And there's rebellion is a motivation. They're rebelling against the orders of the Most High, the command of the Most High, and doing their own work. So that's some of the motivations behind them. Also, we can see that in the chapter 11 that they were inquiring of each other and they were not inquiring of Yah. We don't see them communicating with the Most High, as we see a lot of times in the scriptures with the kings and different people would inquire of the Most High to figure out what they should do. But we don't see that happening here. They're not inquiring of the Most High as to what they should do. They've decided amongst themselves what they're going to do, and they put their own plan together, and now they're executing that plan. And then it says that they were making a name for themselves. That was their hope, to make a name for themselves. And any righteous person is always going to be thinking about lifting up the name of the Most High and seeing how they can, bless His name. And in this instance, they are lifting up their own name. They are seeking to make a name for themselves. And overall, we see a misguided purpose here. And I'm going to come back to that in a moment. So I want to read the rest of that verse there in Genesis chapter 11. And it says, "Then Yah came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. And Yah said, Look, they are one people, and they all have one language. And this is what they begin to do. And now they are not going to be withheld from doing whatever they plan to do. Come, let us go there and confuse their language, so that they do not understand one another's speech. And Yah scattered them from there over the face of the earth. And they left off building the city. That is why its name was called Babel, because there Yah confused the language of all the earth. And from there Yah scattered them over the face of all the earth." So Yah came down to take a look at what these people were doing, and His estimation of it caused Him to confuse their languages, to stop what they were doing, and caused them to be scattered over the face of the earth. So the funny thing is that they brought about their fear of being scattered. They were doing this so that they wouldn't be scattered, and as a result of this, they ended up having their fear come right upon them, because the Most High came down and ended up causing them to be scattered over all the earth, which was His intention for them to fill the earth. But because they didn't do it, they wanted to rebel against the Most High and do their own thing. The Most High had to come and intervene to further accomplish His will. So all of their work came to nothing and was destroyed, because it says after this that the Most High, basically the tower came to nothing. We'll read that in a moment, where He sent the wind to destroy this tower that they thought that they were going to build up to the heavens. So they worked hard and it came to nothing. And it says Yah came down and he was not pleased, nor was he impressed with what he saw. And any righteous person's desire is to please Yah. Is to do something that is pleasing to Yah. Our work should be something that is pleasing in the sight of the Most High. That when he comes down to see it, that is something that he initiated and ordained in the first place. So the Most High wasn't coming down for that reason for this. He was coming down to see what this rebellious noise was in his ears and to get a closer look at it. So Yah was not pleased with what he saw. And that they did make a name for themselves. They were seeking to make a name for themselves, and they accomplished that. They made a name for themselves as being evil. So that's not the way that we want to make a name for ourselves, as being evil, or being raw, dysfunctional, and not operating according to the purpose of the Most High. But that's the name that they made for themselves. Because we're reading this today, and we've been reading this ever since in the Torah, of how these people rebelled against the Most High and were scattered. So I want to read this account also in the book of Jubilees, chapter 10. And it says, in the 33rd Jubilee, the 33rd Jubilee, in the first year of the second week, Peleg took to himself a wife whose name was Lomna, the daughter of Sinar, and she bare him a son in the 4th year of this week. And he called his name Reu, for he said, behold, the children of men have become evil through the wicked purpose of building for themselves a city and a tower in the land of Shinar. For they departed from the land of Ararat eastward to Shinar, for in his days they built the city and the tower, saying, go to, let us ascend thereby into heaven. And they began to build. And in the 4th week they made brick with fire, and the bricks served them for stone. And the clay with which they cemented them together was asphalt, which comes out of the sea and out of the fountains of water in the land of Shinar. And they built it 43 years were they building it. Its breadth was 203 bricks, and the height was the third of one. Its height amounted to 5,433 cubits and 2 palms, and the extent of one wall was 13 stades and the other 30 stades. Okay. And the Lord our God said unto us, behold, they are one people, and this they begin to do, and now nothing will be withheld from them. Go to, let us go down and confound their language, that they might not understand one another's speech, and they may be dispersed into cities and nations. And one purpose will no longer abide with them until the day of judgment. And the Lord descended, and we descended with him to see the city and the tower which the children of men had built. And he confounded their language, and they no longer understood one another's speech, and they ceased then to build the city and the tower. For this reason the whole land of Shinar is called Babel, because the Lord did there confound all the language of the children of men, and from thence they were dispersed into their cities, each according to his language and his nation. And the Lord sent a mighty wind against the tower, and overthrew it upon the earth. And behold, it was between Asher and Babylon, in the land of Shinar. And they called its name Overthrow. In the 4th week in the 1st year, in the beginning thereof of the 34th Jubilee, they were dispersed from the land of Shinar. So this just gives further confirmation of what we've already read in the scriptures, and it adds a few more little details in there. So just a few observations from that. All unity ain't good. All unity is not good. It's not tobe. It's not functional. Just because there's unity. Because these folks had unity. And even if it's productive, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's good. Even when there's commitment and longevity, doesn't necessarily mean that it's good. They worked on this for, 43 years they worked on this? They worked on this for 43 years. Like, I'm not even 43 years old yet. And I've seen people build things and, and multiple times throughout my life. But they built this one structure, and they were working on this one structure for 43 years. A multitude of people. And they made this structure strong and high. So it was very productive work that they were doing, and they were very committed. They worked together in unity. They stuck to it. But just because they were in unity does not mean that this was functional. Doesn't mean that it was good before Yah. We see that it said that the children of men have become evil through the wicked purpose of building for themselves a city and a tower. So their purpose was wicked. And because of that, it was not something that was pleasing to Yah. So all building is not of Yah. If the purpose is wicked, then it's not of the Most High. It doesn't matter how it looks to man. And this is something that especially a lot of Hebrews have to understand, because we hear the word build a whole lot in the Hebrew community. Everybody wants to build together, nation building, all these different things. And the question is, who initiated this building? What exactly are we building? Is it Yah's direct guidance? Is it His will? Is it His purpose? Or is there some other ulterior motives that are behind the things that we think that we're doing that are good, but have not been initiated by Yah? We have to be careful about what we build. So whose mission are we on? Whose mission are we on? These people that were building this tower were not on Yah's mission. They created their own mission because they were not on purpose for Yah. They did not worship Yah. They did not regard and reverence Him. They did not inquire of Him. They did not seek Him. So because of this, they had created their own purpose, their own mission, and were going forth without Yah, and it ended up being in vain. In Psalms 127 verse 1, it says, if Yah does not build a house, its builders have labored in vain. If Yah isn't building a house, the builders are laboring in vain. You can be working really hard at something, but it all be vanity in the end, because the Most High did not initiate this work. So we want to take a look at and really meditate on the thought of, what is it that we are building as individuals, as a community? What are we building, and how are we choosing to build it? What are we building it with? So let's take a look at the Hebrew. Let's jump into some Hebrew and look at the word build. So the word build in Hebrew is BANAH. BANAH. It's bet, noon, hay. Bet, noon, hay. So the bet is a house. It's a tent. And its meaning is in house, family, like the family is housed in the tent. So then we have the noon, which is the sprouting seed, which means to continue, air, sun, life. And actually bet and noon is the Hebrew word ben, which is sun, which the sun is the continuation of the house. That makes sense. So we have bet, noon, and then hay, which is a man with his hands raised, which means reveal, behold, look. Okay, so we have bet, noon, and hay. BANAH. This is the Hebrew word for house. I'm sorry, the Hebrew word for build. So this is the word for build. All right. So it makes sense, because when you're building, we look at the root of this, which is ben, the sun is the seed that continues the house, the continuation of the house. We look at that root. When you're building, that's exactly what you're doing. Depending on what you're building, you're trying to extend. You're trying to cause something to continue. You're making something enlarged when you're building. So in a concrete way, that makes a lot of sense. And then we add the hay to it, where there's means to behold, to reveal, to look. So that makes a lot of sense. And I want to look at another word that is closely related in a strange way. The word for brick is Laban. Laban. It means brick, or to make bricks. So when they say that they made bricks, they made bricks in the building of this tower, this is the word that they use there. So we have the lamed, which is a shepherd's staff, which means to teach, to bind, to yoke. We have the bet, which is again the house, the tent, the family, and then we have the noon, the sprouting seed, continue, air, sun, life. So you see the same root again in this word Laban, the bet and the noon that we just saw in the word BANAH for house. So this again has that the root ben, the sun is the continuation of the house. So we have that in this word Laban, which is talking about bricks. Why? Because Hebrew is concrete and it's functional. So when you have bricks, you're going to build with it. That's the only thing you're really going to do with bricks is build. So it makes sense for these words to be connected together. You're going to build with bricks. So these words are interconnected. They both have the root ben. So again, the question is, what are we building? What are we building? Let's look at Haggai chapter 1. I'm going to read down to verse 11. Starting in verse 2, it says, Thus spoke Yah of hosts, saying, This people have said, The time has not come, the time the house of Yah is to be built. Then the word of Yah came to Haggai the prophet, saying, Is it time for you yourselves to dwell in your paneled houses, and this house be in ruins? And now, thus said Yah of hosts, Consider your ways. You have sown much, but brought in little. Eat, but do not have enough. Drink, but you are not filled with drink. Clothe yourselves, but no one is warm. And he who earns wages to put into a bag with holes. Thus said Yah of hosts, Consider your ways. Go up to the mountain, and you shall bring wood, and build the house. And I will be pleased with it, and let me be esteemed, said Yah. When you looked for much, then see it came to little. And when you brought it home, I would blow on it. Why? Declares Yah of hosts. Because my house which lies in ruins, while each of you runs to his own house. Therefore the heavens above you have withheld the dew, and the earth has withheld its fruit. And I called for a drought on the land, and on the mountains, and on the grain, and on the new wine, and on the oil, and on whatever the ground brings forth, and on man, and on livestock, and on the labor of the hands. Man, so the Most High here is talking to the leaders, and he's saying, listen, my house is in ruins. I don't have a dwelling place. I don't have a place where my people are worshiping, where my people are interacting, where sacrifices are being made, where my presence is. I don't have a house. My house is in ruins, and it's talking about the temple. My house is in ruins, and instead of the people focusing on that, they're focused on their own houses. They're focused on, they're living in, is it paneled houses that we're dwelling in? That sounds pretty fancy to me. They're dwelling in paneled houses, and the Most High's house is in ruins, and they're saying, well, it's not time yet. We'll get to that later. And they're busy building their own houses. So as a result of that, the Most High is like, oh, okay. So you're not going to pay attention to my house being built and making sure that I have a dwelling place. Okay. So whatever you put your hands to, I'm going to bring it to ruin. So even though you're working hard in the fields and you're doing all these things, and you're bringing in money and wages, and you're getting food and drink and clothes, and you're trying to build up your own house. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come along, and all of a sudden it's going to seem like with all the work that you're doing, you're not getting a return on your investment. Everything that comes into the house is going to be brought to nothing. It's going to be blown on. He said, I'm going to blow on it. And it's going to be like, I brought in a lot, but it seems like a little. And we know how that feels. You out there hustling, making lots of money, and all of a sudden it seems like something's always coming to take away that money. He said that it'll be like having a purse with holes in it. You put the money in and it's falling right out. So you buy more clothes, but you still can't stay warm for some reason. You filling up the refrigerator with food, but it seems like you're still hungry. So everything that you're trying to find peace in and building up your own household, the Most High is going to make sure that you're not finding the stability and the comfort that you're looking for, because anything that you put your hand to, he's going to bring to ruin. So even the ground that brings forth the food and the livestock, he said he was going to cause a drought to come. Why? Because his house remains in ruins while we all, each as individuals, are focused on the things that we have set our hearts and our minds to build for ourselves. So that is way back then, and it sounds a lot like today, because the house of the Most High is in ruins. His word is not coming forth. His people are not being equipped and taken care of. His spirit is being quenched, and the people are our people. You could look around and see the state of our people. Yet everybody's focused on starting their own business. Everybody's focused on upgrading their furniture and upgrading their cars and getting a new cell phone and all the things that we're focused on. Even in ministry, we're focused on, putting up a new building or different things that are us making a name for ourselves. But the Most High's house is going still in ruins. So let's look at this word, one more Hebrew word. The word for house is bayit. And we have the bet, the yod, and the tav. The ta. Okay, so the bet, so we see that it's been a common theme in all the words, this bet, the house, the tent, the house, the family. So this has been a common letter word that is a part of all three of these words we've looked at today that are related to building. So of course, to build, we use bricks. House is going to be built, probably built with made possibly with bricks. So this is a common thread through here. Then we have the yod, which is the hand and the arm. It means to worship, to work, to throw. And then we have the tav, the ta, which is two cross sticks, which is a sign, a mark, a signature. Okay, so this is the word for house. And when I was looking in the Strongs, it said that the word bayit, which is for house, comes from the word BANAH, which is the word to build. So there's an interrelationship between all of these words. So as we are examining ourselves, because that's the point of reading this, is to get understanding of what happened then, but also for us to examine ourselves now. What is it that we are building? Each one of us has different what we call family. We have a household. We either have a career or business or something that we're using as a source of income. And a lot of us have some type of ministry or community or something that we're trying to build. So what is it that we're building? And as we're trying to build these things, are we creating our own bricks? One of the things that I saw as I was going through this, and I did a search on bricks in the scriptures, a lot of times it seems like it was connected to labor. I don't really see where the Most High gives instructions for people to build something with brick. Brick was associated with the work of your own hands, your own labor, your own works. We see brick again when it comes to the work they were doing in Egypt when they were enslaved. They had them. They made it even harder for them to create the bricks, because at first they had the straw that was given to them. Now they had to go get their own straw to make the bricks. So it's often associated, bricks, with labor of your own hands, your own work. So what are we building, and are we trying to build these things with our own philosophy, with our own strength, with our own ideas and our own plans, or are we seeking Yah and inquiring of Yah? The people that were building this tower did not inquire of Yah. They inquired of each other. They sought each other's counsel instead of Yah. So are we inquiring of Yah, or are we inquiring of each other? Are we talking to teachers and talking to people we deem to be leaders, or talking to our other brothers and sisters about what we're going to do, but not inquiring of what Yah desires for us to do? Are we creating with bricks the work of our own hands, as we're trying to build our family, as we're trying to build, this career and this business? Are we just on the grind doing our own thing? And that's something that I think is really a big deal right now. A lot of us are trying to build things that the Most High either doesn't intend for us to do, and we find it hard to believe that. I think that we are deceived in a lot of ways about our idea of what the Most High desires for us to be focused on. So we're either doing something that the Most High didn't never ordained for us to do, or we're doing it in a way that He did not instruct us to do. So we have to be really careful and really humble ourselves and not get caught up in pride and in self assurance of what we're doing, and humble ourselves to the Most High. Even in doing ministry, sometimes we take things and run. We're trying to build communities and build businesses and all kinds of ministries and things without consulting the Most High. And really, it shouldn't even be, it should be the other way around. It should be that the Most High has come to us and pour something into us, and then we have to humble ourselves and stay in step with the Spirit to be led and guided on how to carry out the thing that the Most High has put in our hearts. So, and is the name that we're making for ourselves, is what we're doing for our own name's sake, or is it for the Most High's name's sake? Why are we reaching towards the heavens? They were reaching towards the heavens to be able to combat with the Most High. And so are we reaching towards the heavens for to really worship and to lift up His name? Or do we have a hidden agenda or selfish ambition to build ourselves up and for people to see us and recognize us and see that we finally made it? Or, are we trying to impress somebody, even though we're doing things that are admirable? Doesn't mean that we're doing it for the right motives. And those are the things that we have to search our heart to find out what's our motive, what's our intention. What is and that's really takes maturity to be able to search our hearts and or allow someone else close to us to be able to help us search our hearts for things that they may see that we don't see in our own motives and things, and for us to receive that. So what will the Most High Yah see when He looks down on the thing that we're working on, the thing that we're building, the thing that we say that we're doing for Him? When He looks down, will he recognize it as something that He initiated and that He instructed? Or will He recognize it as something foreign that we've done and moved to do in our own strength? So let's take a look at some of the things that the righteous in the scriptures were building, and how the righteous in the scriptures went about building those things. When you see the scriptures, we see that Noah built the ark, and it was not Noah's intentions to build the ark, but Yah came to him and gave him the inspiration to do so, and then gave him the instructions on how to carry it out. And it took Noah 120 years to finish that project, which is a long time. And we tend to like things to go quickly. So we we get inspired and motivated, and we want to see something happen. We want the end result to come about immediately. So we get on the grind, we get moving. But the Most High is not concerned about time. He will allow us to take our time. He wants us to go through the process and to build something that's going to be firm and that's going to be lasting, and that will survive the test of time, the trials, and the fire. And that to build with materials that will, and we're looking at physical materials, but think about character. Okay, think about the things of the heart, the things that are within us. He wants those things to be tried and tested and true as we go through the process of building. So He wants us to build things that are going to last. So Noah took 120 years to build an ark that was going to be sustained through the flood. And the Most High instructed him on how to do that. Can you imagine if he did not follow the Most High's instructions, him and his family would not have survived through that flood. So the righteous build out of the inspiration of the Most High, according to the instructions of the Most High, and with the materials that the Most High gives them to build. So we see Moses built the tabernacle for the Most High, and the Most High gave him the instructions to do so. He inspired it and gave him specific instructions on how to carry it out and what materials to use. And the Most High tends to use costly and precious materials when he's building for himself, and when he's building things that are for his worship. Also with Solomon in building the temple, same thing. He gave him the instructions, specific instructions on how to carry that work out, and what materials to use, and how to put things in place and in position. So the righteous tend to build altars, which are used as a place of sacrifice, as a memorial to remember something that the Most High has done. And the Most High even gave instructions for when they're building those altars. At one point, he told them not to use, when they're using stone, to not chisel the stone with their tools, with their instruments, to not chisel it, because if you chisel it, it will defile the stone, and it'll defile that altar of worship. So not to use that. And that again goes back to the work of the hands. The Most High does not want you involved. He wants you to get out of the way and not interfere with the things that are being used for his worship. So the Most High will inspire his people that are righteous to build altars, to build tabernacles, which are places of worship and a dwelling place for him, because the Most High is looking for a place to dwell, for his spirit to dwell in the midst of his people. The Most High wants to be in the midst of his people. And he's looking to build a house. The righteous build their house, the house of Jacob, the house of Israel, the house of Judah, the house of David. This is the house, takes a look at the family, the lineage, the seed, and also the kingdom. And the continuation of that is important. So we're looking for the continuation of the house of Yah, as it's being built in the midst of his people. So let's take a look at what the Messiah had to say about building. We're going to look at Matthew chapter 16, and I'm going to start at verse 15. But right before verse 15, Messiah is talking to his disciples, and he's asking them about who people say that he is. So who do people say that I am is what he's asking. And they give him several answers of who the people are saying. And then in verse 15, Messiah says, he said to them, and you, who do you say I am? And Simon Kepha, which is Peter, answers saying, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living Elohim. And Yahusha answering said to him, blessed are you, Shimon Bar Yonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in the heavens. And I also say to you that you are Kepha, and on this rock I shall build my assembly, and the gates of Sheol shall not overcome it. So one of the keys here is the fact that Messiah himself is building his assembly. On this rock I shall build my assembly. He didn't say that we were going to build it. He said that he is going to build his assembly on this rock, on this stone, on this foundation of him being the Messiah and the Son of the living Elohim. He's building his assembly. So we have to follow him to get instructions on how we participate in the building of his assembly. And this is Peter that he's talking to. So now I want to go over to 1 Peter chapter 2. And this is Peter talking here, and in remembrance of what he learned from the Messiah. He says in verse 4, drawing near to him, him being the Messiah, Yahusha, drawing near to him a living stone, rejected indeed by men, but chosen by Elohim and precious. Here we go with this stone again, talking about stone and precious stones. So drawing near to him a living stone, rejected indeed by men, but chosen by Elohim and precious. You also, as living stones, are being built up a spiritual house, a set-apart priesthood, to offer up spiritual slaughter offerings, spiritual sacrifices, acceptable to Elohim through Yahusha Messiah. So Peter is showing us and confirming what Messiah said about him building his assembly on the rock, on the stone, on the foundation, and us drawing near to him, this living stone who was chosen by the Most High. So again, We are not a part of this process. The Most High chose Messiah as his precious stone, and then now he chose us as living stones, and each one of us are being built up. First, he's working on us as individuals and working on our hearts and our minds and our character, and he's working to build each one of us up as a living stone. Then he's building us together as a spiritual house. So he's working on us as individuals, and then he's building us together as a spiritual house, a set apart priesthood to offer up spiritual sacrifices that are acceptable to him through Messiah. Now the offering and the work that they were doing at the tower was not acceptable to the Most High, but this work here is going to be acceptable because it's through the Messiah who was chosen by him, and is doing the work in us to build us up as a spiritual house. And we talked about the house, and the Most High is looking for a dwelling place, and he wants to dwell amongst his people. So he's building us up to be that temple that he's able to dwell in, and for his spirit to dwell amongst us. And we're being built together and placed with someone else who the Most High is working on. And now we're dealing with different conflicts. We're dealing with differences of beliefs. We're dealing with personality, rubbing each other the wrong way. We're dealing with offense. We're dealing with different doctrines. And this is why it's so hard for us to have unity. And we end up just, throwing each other to the wayside when the Most High is trying to build us together. So you got two rough stones that are now rubbing against each other, that are causing friction. You know what I mean? So we have to allow the Most High to smooth those edges so that we can be built together as a spiritual house, because the Most High wants to dwell in our midst. His Ruach, his spirit is with us and dwelling in our midst, because we are a set apart priesthood. We are supposed to be living sacrifices to the Most High. So we have to go through this process of allowing him to build us up and to build us together. And that is the main work that we're doing right now. That the character issues, the wrong doctrines that we have, all the things that are keeping us separate, keeping us from, instead of being one spiritual house built together, we end up being dozens of spiritual individuals and dozens of spiritual little fragments here and there, when the Most High is trying to build us together as a spiritual house, and bring us back to true unity, for the right purpose and not an evil purpose as they were building at the Tower of Babel. And and this is a hard work, so this is the work that we should be focused on, but we seem to detract ourselves and be distracted from this by working on other things. This work gets too hard, so we, instead of focusing on that, we find something else to work on and go our own way, instead of doing the work that the Most High has placed in front of us. And then the Most High has to take and send a wind to throw us back and to throw us back on course, and to cause disruptions in our life, to get us to wake up and recognize that we've abandoned the true work of the Most High. So we have to get back on course and recognize what we're called to. So I'm going to read this in Isaiah 28, and you can go back and read this whole chapter. I'm just going to read a small portion of this, just to make the connection, because everything that we read in the Brit Hadashah in the New Testament is, we can find the foundation for it either in the Torah or the prophets, or the writings of what they call the Old Testament. So in Isaiah 28, I'm going to go down to verse 16. It says, "Therefore thus said the Master Yah, see, I am laying in Zion a stone for a foundation, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, a settled foundation. He who trusts shall not hasten away." So the Most High here again is saying that he is laying a cornerstone. He's laying a stone for a foundation, a tried stone. Here we go with the stone again. A precious cornerstone. Sometimes in some verses it says chief cornerstone. We're talking about the Messiah, a settled foundation. So again, The Messiah said he's building his assembly on the rock, on the stone, on the foundation. And we see here that the Most High had already said that he's going to lay in Zion a stone for a foundation, a stone that's been tried, and a precious cornerstone, which is going to be a settled foundation. So the Most High made the choice to choose this stone that was acceptable to him, this chief cornerstone, his Messiah. And the Messiah is building on this foundation to be able to build his assembly, to build his house, the house of the Most High. This is the work that's going on in eternity, from eternity, and it's the work that we should be zeroed in on, the work that we should be building and focused on above everything else in our lives. So you can go back and read the rest of that chapter, rest of that verse there. I'm going to read 1 Corinthians chapter 3, and I'm going to start at verse 9. For we are fellow workers of Elohim. You are the field of Elohim, the building of Elohim. You are the building of Elohim. Same theme going throughout the scriptures. According to the favor of Elohim, which was given to me as a wise master builder, I have laid the foundation, and another builds on it. But each one should look how he builds on it. For no one is able to lay any other foundation except that which is laid, which is Yahushua Messiah. Yahushua Messiah is the foundation that was laid. And if anyone builds on this foundation with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, straw, each one's work shall be revealed, for the day shall show it up, because it is revealed by fire, and the fire shall prove the work of each one, what sort it is. If anyone's work remains, which he has built on, he shall receive a reward. If anyone's work is burned, he shall suffer loss, but he himself shall be saved, but so as through fire. Do you not know that you are a dwelling place of Elohim, and that the Spirit of Elohim dwells in you? If anyone destroys the dwelling place of Elohim, Elohim shall destroy him. For the dwelling place of Elohim is set apart, which you are. This same theme of the Most High saying that we are the dwelling place. He's been looking from the beginning. He's always been looking for a dwelling place, the place to dwell, for his spirit to dwell in the midst of his people. He started, in the garden. He moved to the tabernacle, the temple. He's looking for a place and a way to dwell with his people. We are the dwelling place. Those of us who have been chosen in Messiah, we are the dwelling place of Elohim. And the Spirit dwells in us and with us and amongst us. And it says that if anyone destroys the dwelling place of Elohim, that Elohim shall destroy him. So our focus has to be on making sure that we are being built up as individuals, and as a community we are building up the house of the Most High. That we are not allowing his house to remain in ruins, and that we are creating a place that is set apart for him to dwell. This is our reasonable service, our reasonable sacrifice. This is the focus of our lives, and we have to put everything else into perspective and in place, and not allow ourselves to rise up like the tower, to rise up our own ambitions and our own desires, and the things that we think that are good in this life, the things that we think are necessary, even our careers, our jobs, our family. We cannot allow these things to take precedence over the work of the Most High. Everything must submit and surrender to the purpose of the Most High, and we have to filter and allow him to show us how to walk. How do we carry out our family according to this plan? How do we carry out and bring income into our households so that we can make it in this world? How do we minister to his people? We have to seek him for those things so that we don't fall out of alignment. So this last scripture I'm going to read is Matthew 7, and starting at verse 24. And this is the Messiah speaking. He says, "Therefore everyone who hears these words of mine and does them shall be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain came down, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house. And it did not fall, for it was founded on" what? The rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them shall be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain came down, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and they beat on that house, and it fell, and great was its fall. So the Messiah is telling us to build our house on the rock. To build our house on the rock, which is a firm foundation, so that we don't come to ruin, so that the Most High doesn't have to come down and scatter us, so that He doesn't have to come bring confusion in our midst, because we're building something that's foreign to Him. So we should build our house with wisdom, and the wisdom that comes from Him through His leading, through His guidance. So let's continue to meditate on these various themes as we look at this this Torah portion here, and allow the Most High to search our hearts, search our minds, search our motives. It's really hard to sometimes accept the fact that sometimes our motives are not what we think it is, that our good is not as good as we thought, that our intentions are questionable. But we have to allow our hearts to be wide open before the Most High, and bring ourselves and lay that down at His feet. Allow Him to search our hearts and to pull those things out and show it to us. And we have to admit those things and accept it, and allow Him to redirect us. We repent of those things and ask to be cleansed from the inside out, in our minds, our hearts, our desires that sometimes drive us, that we don't realize are driving us, so that we don't be seen as evil or as wicked or as being in rebellion. So I pray that the Most High will search our hearts and put us on the narrow path, and keep our feet walking in the light of His word, in step with His Spirit, so that we can continue to be built together as a spiritual house that is acceptable and pleasing to Him. Shalom. I'll see you in the next video.